like to be creative because I was one of those people who, when I was a district trainer, if they knew I was in a room, they would come to my room because they knew that I'm not going to be your average presenter because I don't like boring presentations. So I'm always looking at how do I make this difference?
Welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figure Educator podcast. My name is Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas. I'm a former teacher, former principal, Harvard grad, and CEO and founder of EJT Education Group. Today, I have Tiffany Kelly, CEO of FitTeach, with us to be able to share her story of growing her business. And I'm so excited for you able to learn more about her story as an alum of our program and member of the Wealthy Black Educator Mastermind and community. So go ahead, buckle up, particularly if you're like, well, can I do this thing? Can I grow an education consulting business? You absolutely want to tune into this episode. Let's go ahead and get into it. So let's start with unpacking your journey in education. So walk people through your story in education. What are some of the positions that you held? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I actually came into education non-traditionally. My bachelor's is actually in business management. And so after a journey, I had a health challenges back in my early 20s that led me to be home for like 4 months, bedridden actually. And so after that, I needed a job. And so I had some connections through my dad, and they were looking for teachers. And I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go apply. And I ended up going to ended up at an elementary school where I was a floater. I taught elementary math. And
ooh, come on, floater. You just triggered something in me when you said floater. But go ahead, honey.
Different classrooms, got to know the students and things like that. And then the next year they asked me to stay and teach third grade. So I started as a third grade teacher, and I did really well. I proved myself to be able to deal with all kinds of behavior issues because it was a challenge in the inner city, Brooklyn, New York, near the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I stayed there for a while, and I was still doing that while helping my father run his businesses. But in 2005, I decided to travel and see what other things were open in Atlanta. So my cousin moved here from New York, and I came to visit her. I said, wait a minute, so you own a whole house like this on a teacher's salary? I'm gone. And so I ended up coming, before I left New York, I was a math coach. My first year as a math coach, my principal asked me, was I sure that I really want to leave? Because we were number 4 in the city for mathematics improvement.
That means she was the bomb.
So I was doing my thing, rolling out a new curriculum called Everyday Math. And so from there, I decided to take that leap and actually move for something different. And so I went back to do early intervention programs here in Georgia as a math teacher. And a couple of years later, I left. Well, actually, I left after that and went to Atlanta. And I actually taught all girls for 4 years, 4th grade all girls, the best 4 years of my career probably. And then from there, I ended up coming out of the classroom, becoming an instructional coach. And I was an instructional coach for a very long time. Went to different schools. And then after my last couple of years, I was what they call a turnaround coach. So I'm someone who specializes in coming into a school and providing coaching support and to turn it around within 1 year. And we actually did just that the last year before I left the system. But yeah, in 2017, I actually left the system, decided to do some business on my own for a while. But you know how sometimes you don't leave organized, so I had to go back in for a little while. And I ended up going back into coaching. I spent about half a year out. And then I went back into, they pulled me out the classroom when they found out I had experience. And so I've been out ever since. So I would say I'm about 23 years total in education. I have a master's in math education. And I have an add-on in educational leadership. And then I've been, I think, 14 years as an actual instructional coach.
So before we talk about your business, you said something around your dad's businesses. And one of my most vivid memories of when I first met you was you sharing the story of your dad was an entrepreneur. And so I think it's fascinating because that's such a beautiful gift to grow up with someone who is entrepreneurial and an entrepreneur, where many folks, I think they're so afraid of entrepreneurship because they haven't seen it. They don't know it. No one in their family. And your dad was an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And so talk to us a little bit around like what your what your perceptions of entrepreneurship was before you started your business, because you were very confident in entrepreneurship. At least that was my read. Like, you didn't doubt entrepreneurship. Like, you were not afraid of it. You were like, oh, my dad did this, I could do this too. So talk to us a little bit around how you saw entrepreneurship.
Dad was no joke. No joke. I learned freedom. That you can have freedom in entrepreneurship. You get to make the decisions. I always share the story about how my dad made me fire my first employee at 15. And he was out of town. Like, he would leave me for like months to run the businesses while he would have things he would do in South Carolina, because he had properties in South Carolina. And I was like 15, 16 years old. I would leave. I didn't have the normal high school life. I didn't do any activities after school. I would pretty much be leaving school to go to the bank with checks in my bag to go deposit. But it taught me freedom, though. It taught me how to organize. Some of our systems that we used in the laundromat, for example, was my system that I created for inventory. But it taught me a lot of those things: responsibility, showing up even sometimes when I didn't feel good. Knowing that my father had this whole thing about, you have to learn every piece of the business, because if someone decides not to show up, you have to do that job. And so I learned very quickly how to do a lot of things, from fixing washing machines to bleeding boilers to washing toilets and everything else that you could think of, bartending and all kind of stuff, because we had to show up no matter what. And so that's what it taught me. But most importantly, freedom. My father always said to me, it's going to be really hard to work for someone else, because you know what being an entrepreneur is, working for yourself, is all about.
So was your education consulting business, was that your first business venture?
No.
So what were your previous business ventures before your education consulting business?
So my first, if I go all the way back, my first business was hair. So when I was in college, we had a customer in our laundromat who wanted me to put tracks in for her. But she paid me, you know? And so that thing of the first iteration of it. And so down the line, when I first moved here, I actually had a tutoring company. I would tutor kids after school and make extra money. And then later on, my cousin and I did this program. We actually created our business plans. And I was probably in that class, the salutatorian. I had like the second top one. So I ended up launching a tutoring business where I hired other tutors to work for me. I pretty much borrowed the model from a guy who was paying us to work for him, and he wasn't even in education. And so I said, I'm going to use his model and make it better. And so I did that for a little while, but it got a little challenging when my cousin decided to go back to New York. And so, because we did the business together, but after that, I actually had another hair company called Hair Fancies. And so I actually turned part of my front, like my dining area in my house, became my hair studio. So I painted it and everything and designed it up, and and that was during the time I was going through a transition from a previous marriage, and so I needed to make sure I had more income coming in. So every Saturday, my goal was to have a butt in the seat. And so I went from charging $50 a head to where I wouldn't touch somebody for less than $150 at that time for sew-ins. And then I got into custom wigs for a while and making custom wigs for people. And so that was actually my first real business, because that one actually was an LLC too. So, but yeah, I did hair. I did sew-ins, and when people would come to me with different hairstyles and I didn't know, I would stay up all night on YouTube University, like researching, and yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I haven't done research on this, but I feel like 1 out of every 2 Black people, their first entrepreneurial venture was like cutting hair in a dorm room or like doing hair out your house, whether it was like a hot comb or you was giving somebody a perm or you was braiding hair. And I named that because I think I use that as an example that entrepreneurial is actually cultural for us, where for some of us who think it's so familiar or it's so foreign, where it's like, no, actually, like that is historical to our community, is entrepreneurship. And I think your dad is a beautiful example of that, and the lessons that he passed down to you of just like, we are a people where historically we've been creators, where we have created whatever we needed when freedom wasn't handed to us or given to us, or we were forced out of systems. Like, we created what we needed in order to survive. So talk to us around your education consulting business. Let's first start with, what's the problem that you solve and who do you solve it for?
I work with K-12 school districts and school leaders to bring wellness to the forefront, so that way more educators have more energy, they're resilient, they're healthy, and they're able to better serve the school community. And I'm really infusing more of the healthy eating piece, the importance of nutrition, and why we should really look at how we take care of our bodies in terms of food and what we put in our bodies.
Now, what led you to that problem? Because what I love about your business is the problem that you solve is so unique. Like, it's not literacy, though it could be. It's not math, though it could be. Like, it's educator wellness, and even the way in which you solve that problem, which we'll talk about here in a minute, is so unique. And you could have just said, well, I'm going to start the tutoring business again. What led you to land on this problem?
Well, I used to be a 260 plus pound female. I had a weight loss journey. And if you would have asked me a couple of years ago, I didn't even think it would even evolve into all of this. I just wanted to be healthy. I came back from a conference with some educator friends, and a coworker was on a plane with me, and she was telling me about how her mother died and how she had complications from years of being on medications, and many of them were like high blood pressure meds and things like that. And I'm sitting on the plane like, I'm too young to die. I gotta do something. So I got off the plane that day. I was like, okay, I gotta change my eating. I gotta get into the gym, things like that. I found different ways to reward myself for meeting milestones besides food, because everything was to celebrate with some food. So I said, okay, if I meet this milestone, I earn the right now to buy me an iPod Nano. Something like that.
Come on, iPad Nano? That's a throwback.
Yeah,
okay.
I went all the way back, right? And so that's how I got started. So my own journey, and I did it during the time when I was an instructional coach. Well, actually, no, I was a classroom teacher. So people saw me like dropping this weight, and they were trying to figure out what's going on. And then I brought my trainer at the time to the school, and then other people got involved. And then later on, as I continued my journey, I was an instructional coach. And so I would go to meetings and people were like, what are you doing? And so I started sharing her information. And then down the line, I became a fitness instructor under her. So I taught her boot camps every Wednesday for like 2 years. And a lot of the people who were in the class were educators. And so it was funny because during that time, people would ask me, well, how do you cook this, Tiffany? How do you cook that? And I'm like, I'll be just rambling off stuff, giving away recipes. Didn't even think that was something I would do later on. But what ended up happening is that in 2015, I lost my house in a fire. I lost everything. It was a year of like just a lot of losses, relationships, my house, my dad. It was the onset of me finding out my dad had dementia. The tail end of 2014, my principal, who was like my superhero, my mentor, she passed away of congestive heart failure. And so it was a lot of hits. So the next year when I was still doing the fitness stuff and things like that, but I became sick. And during those times, people always watched me. I was the example. And so I'm always helping other people, but then now I'm down because I've dealt with so much. And so I was basically put on medical leave for 30 days. And while I was home, God gave me FitTeach. He said, you're going to do something else for people, for educators. And it was also to honor my principal, because she was like a second mother to me. And so to watch her die those last couple of months, because she retired after 30 something plus years of service, not even to enjoy a year of her retirement. She was 57 years old. And so when I get up to do certain workshops, I have one in particular that's geared towards leaders and wellness, is to honor her because of the impact she had on my life. And so what happened during that time during FitTeach, the first iteration of it was mainly around just fitness, because I was a fitness person at that time, really big in fitness. Everybody knew my journey. And so, but I also found myself coaching because teachers would come to a collaborative planning session with like, soda and donuts. It's early in the morning and y'all talking about, I can't get this weight off of me and I'm tired. Well, let's talk about what you're eating. Or we would have like a one-on-one session where I'm giving a teacher feedback on her lesson, but she starts sharing with me things she's dealing with, and she already knew my weight loss journey. So now I'm coaching her. I'm having a health coaching session instead of a academic coaching session. And so that's pretty much how FitTeach came about. And in the beginning, I started doing a lot of free workshops. During the pandemic, I had a whole self-care forum that I did every month where I would bring in my wellness besties to come and pour into educators. But there was a change for me though at the end of that year, of that school year, when I did a survey and people talk about all the changes that they made based on being a part of my wellness forums, and how much they appreciated and how they made a lot of adjustments to their eating and things like that. But the one thing that was interesting is that they were not willing to invest in themselves to pay me. And because I asked about would you pay blah, 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 blah. So I said, I gotta do this. I gotta figure out how to still reach educators and help them to prioritize their wellness, but I gotta take a different route. And so I ended up, another iteration of it was now I need to touch leaders and get leaders to shift practice, because if I can get leaders to buy in, then teachers will get the benefit of it, will not necessarily come out of their pockets personally. And so that's how the next level of FitTeach came about, where now I work with school districts and school leaders who have budgets that where they can invest and bring me to their schools to impact teachers. And then teachers, they decide to invest further. They've already experienced it without investing, but now they want to invest. That's the idea behind it.
You know what I thought about as you were speaking, and I just had like this aha just now in this moment, I hadn't thought about this before, is scarcity shows up in a lot of ways within schools and school districts. And I feel like one of the ways in which it shows up is schools from a staff standpoint, a teacher standpoint, are almost kind of like food deserts, where because of the lack of resources, the constraints that we have on budgets, as a principal, I could only purchase food through my Title I budget. And because of the guidelines of Title I, what the budget would come down to per person was $3 per person. So when we're talking about $3 per person and vendors that you could work with that would accept POs, it was a lot of fast food. So it was, or, certain boxed meals or box lunches or pizza, because you could double cut, certain slices and stuff. And so what you just shared just made me think about the fact that that's one of the ways in which scarcity shows up, is actually the foods in which we provide staff and we are consumed by, educators, where you're right. It's donuts for dads. It's, muffins for moms. Right. It's all the sweets and the cakes and the biscuits and all those things. So what you're doing is so innovative, because you're addressing a need and an issue that we don't often talk about, but it's actually impacting the livelihood of the people who are serving kids in their communities. So tell us a little bit about your service offerings, because how you approach your services is really unique. You just don't stand in the front of the room with a presentation and click. Talk to us around your service offerings.
So I like to be creative, because I was one of those people who, when I was a district trainer, if they knew I was in a room, they would come to my room, because they knew that I'm not going to be your average presenter, because I don't like boring presentations. So I'm always looking at, how do I make this different? So what I offer schools, for my very first, what they call the prerequisite session usually, is my workshop around creating your self-care plan. So I help educators create their self-care plan. I have 2 different workshops that are tailored to that, and one that has been the hit has been called "Dear Educator, Put Your Oxygen Mask On First Before Serving Others." It has an airplane theme, so I usually show up looking like an airline stewardess for the most part. I have a whole intro video that was done with my former principal, my current principal, that we did for another event. And I continue to use that because it's catchy. So basically, it's like you're actually on a plane. You experience the whole plane ride, like somebody telling you put your oxygen mask on. I'm in the video with the oxygen mask, and I'm putting it over like an airline stewardess. But it's also to remind, and I use scenarios a lot, because a lot of times the scenarios that I share, educators can see themselves in those scenarios, and it kind of hits home for them. I haven't had not one session where someone can identify that I experienced that. And so it helps people to shift what they do, shift mindset. And so usually when they leave that session, they walk away with an actual self-care plan that they can do. And I give them strategies on how they can, level up after they've at least done this part. That's one. My other services, I do virtual events as well. So if there's a situation where a particular school district may not be able to bring me in, I also offer virtual sessions as well. I also recently I've added the infused my cooking with Tiffany brand with FitTeach. So I offer cooking classes. So I have one coming up where 35 educators are going to experience cooking with Tiffany partner with FitTeach, where I actually do actual cooking class where you are with me. I have skillets. I own 17 skillets, indoor grills. And pretty much I bring all the food. I have a seasoning line, so you get samples of my seasoning as well. I have a cookbook, so I usually pull one of the recipes from my cookbook. And we have a whole cooking experience, and I get to talk about the importance of meal prepping. I share tools for meal prepping and meal planning, recipes that come with it. In this particular principal, he wanted some black rice, so I added that as a part of it. So there's a part where they cook the main dish, and then I have like salad on the side. I may have the rice, and then they have a to-go container because it's only a 75-minute session for them. Normally about 90 minutes to 2 hours, but they only have 75 minutes. So we made accommodations for that. So that's one way. I have other ways where there's another workshop that sometimes comes before that one. Like this school, for example, experienced the very first workshop, which is called Stress to Success, and the role that nutrition plays in our wellness as educators. And so in that session, I talk about all the things in terms of nutrition, and I provide all the tools and the downloads for like the different templates you can use to plan your lessons. And I provide a cooking demo. So I show up with the food, I set it up on the table, and when I'm out of town, I travel with my stuff. So I have my skillet in my suitcase, I have the food and everything that's gonna be prepared. Usually something that's simple that can be done, but it's to bring conversation, to have a conversation around, we have to take care of our bodies, we have to eat better. And it is not as hard as we think it is, because I think sometimes we overthink it and we make it hard when it doesn't have to be. So I share like hacks for grocery shopping, and if you're on a budget, how to organize yourself and create that day that you actually meal plan, all those things, because I experienced that in my own life on my weight loss journey. So I'm able to actually share my own experiences and put that in, package it, and offer it to now help somebody else. And then I offer my cookbook too, so I bundle that in too.
So you just hosted an event for Black History Month that I thought was really interesting, which was kind of like a twist on the services that you provide. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think it's an interesting, almost like marketing strategy of you have an existing service, but you're taking an advantage of a publicly recognized or observed month of Black History Month, and now you've tweaked your service from a marketing standpoint to actually play into the fact that it's Black History Month. So tell us around what that experience was.
So a couple of months ago, I launched my new Cooking with Tiffany's Deliciously Social Events studio. So I actually took my garage and I turned it into a cooking studio.
I love it.
So now people can experience me live and in person. So like, for example, I may go to a school and do a cooking class next week, and they may say, hey, well, what else do you? I'm going to advertise. I'm going to say, hey, if you're looking to do something with your girls or your homegirls, your family together, come see me. But this event actually is not new. It's just that it was virtual. So about 4 years ago, I think during the beginning onset of the pandemic, I was a part of this group, and a young lady was a part of an organization in New York. And she said, hey, did you do virtual cooking classes? I said, I do. Because I was already cooking live, so what's the difference, right? And so she hired me to come do she said, we're doing this Black History Month thing, and I want to, talk about, history around the table, around a meal. And I said, oh, I got you. And so I did some research. My very first recipe was a healthy version of Hoppin' John.
Ooh, I love me some Hoppin' John.
And I basically have a whole slideshow, and I share the history of the food. So it's a social studies lesson. And so that one opportunity led to every year now, she hires me to come do a Black History Month presentation. And it also opened the door for other school districts, even my own current one, to hire me a couple of years before last for theirs, because it's still talking about history. And so this year, because I already launched the studio and I want to have something in February, I decided to make it a Black History Month theme. And so I featured 3 different recipes. So it's basically like ingredients that we would use in historical African-American dishes with a twist, a healthier version of it. Or like things that we as African-Americans would normally have at the table, like cornbread with a twist. And then I had a vegan version of it. So it was a hit. We had a great time. And also on top of that, I actually had as a teacher in me, I had little printouts of other foods that came from Africa and the history of it. So when you came into my home and you checked in, I have like the whole layout with different appetizers and things like that. But I had the history of the fruits that came from over in Africa. And so that particular event is not limited to just Black History Month now, because I just got someone who wants to do it for Juneteenth. because it's still celebrating the history of our people. And so I would love to do more of those, even with other schools, because it's an amazing event. So even if you can't bring me in person, I will still provide you an amazing experience with families virtually. And so it's been pretty cool.
So tell us about the contract that took you by surprise. Like when you think about all of the contract opportunities that you've been able to have through FitTeach, what was a contract that was just like surprising in a good way of just like, oh, like they said yes, or oh my goodness, they're willing to pay me what? Like tell us about a contract that took you by surprise.
I want to say, this one particular school, my very first contract, I would say is probably the one, because that's when you really realize that they're gonna really pay me.
Yes,
I was
which
like,
is my favorite moment.
They're gonna pay me.
Favorite moment.
So I would say it was my very first contract, which was as a result of me presenting at a conference in California a couple of years ago. I think after speaking to the lady who was over that department, within like 2 weeks I had a contract. She was serious. Like it was for like, that was like November, December. And it was not until, it wasn't supposed to happen until July of the next year. And I was like,
she was locking that in.
She was locking it in. And so basically when I sent her my price, she was like, okay. I was like, that's my whole month's salary. Did she just say yes?
And how much was that contract?
It was $5,000. $5,000. And what's so awesome is that has also become my second best contract, because I have another one this year. And then she also locked in November, December. Same thing again. And that actually is one of my biggest contracts now, because not only did I also increased my price. I increased my price. Because my coach taught me that. So I increased my price and I sent it over and accepted it. But when I was I was having my sales call actually at a conference, because she wanted to lock me in. And so I'm in between sessions and I'm sitting in the lobby area having a conversation with her. And when she said, I know, I'm pretty sure your price is a little bit more than it was that yesterday. They've gone up a little bit. Yeah. And so I sent over the information and she accepted it. And not only that, but I also have been really looking at how do I merge my brands. And so she also accepted and bought 120 of my cookbooks. Yes.
Wow. Come on, upsell.
And when I roll, I'm also rolling with my seasoning too. So like, even though they didn't buy the seasoning also rolls with me too, because most likely people are gonna buy the seasoning too, because all 4 of those sessions are me doing cooking demos. So and that's the thing about being different, because I shared with her in our session around what my different workshops were now that, I've been a little more seasoned from when she met me. And when I pitched her the cooking one, she was like, that's it. She was on the phone like, no one's doing that, kind of thing.
Right.
And so I was like, wow, I can really, this is cool, because I didn't think that I could at first, like, would people really want to do something like this? But it's all in how you present it. And so when she said yes, so it's going to be 4 rotations and they're all cooking ones. They're all going to be cooking demos. So it's my Stress to Success workshop. And basically, I'm going to do a cooking demo for those. And she ordered cookbooks for every session, every participant. And I'll probably also just bring my seasonings as well, so that way they can also buy that too, because I'm going to cook with my seasoning.
Right.
Of course.
Right.
So they get to also smell it.
Yes.
And they'll purchase the seasoning too.
And you said something that was really important. It's all about how you present it. So what have been some things that you've learned, because your business is so unique and because it is just a very innovative service model? You have to be really sophisticated in your messaging for people to understand the value. So what have been some things that you've learned in terms of how you present it and how you position and message your services to your target audience?
One of the things I think that has helped me is that I listen more. You gotta listen more. I like to listen when I have like consultations or just talking to people in general, like different events, to hear like what are some of the things, their pain points. And so for me, it's been more of building also school culture. That's been one of my kind of ways into building school culture. I also talk a lot about absenteeism, teachers being sick. Sometimes I share my story of my principal as well. That's been one that's like, because no one wants to die and not enjoy retirement.
Right.
right? So I usually share that, and I also share my own journey. But I also use waive my receipts with no shame.
Come on.
So I share like what other schools have experienced with me and their results. I try my best as well I have videos of different things I've done with testimonials. I've invested a lot of money last year and the year before in capturing footage of my events and having testimonials. So I have different videos. So when I send my emails, I have a little signature line where I have my links in there, or I'll send it in the email body so you can like check out this video what people are saying, and that has helped as well. And so, but I come from an angle of hitting those pain points around absenteeism, being sick, school culture, building morale, and also overall wanting to eat better. And a lot of people want to lose weight. And so I those are some of the ways I message myself.
So to zoom up from a business strategy standpoint and give our audience language to what you just named, because I think this is really powerful from an entrepreneur standpoint. And this is a misstep that a lot of people make, is when they're talking about their services, they're talking about the features. So they're talking about that it's a 90-minute cooking demo, that these are the agenda or what it could look like. This is how many participants that you could bring. And we call that vitamin language, of where you are centering the features of your service or your offerings, and people don't buy vitamins. They buy painkillers. And so you gave us a really great example of actually leading with the pain point of, well, if you have a staff culture opportunity, if your staff is overwhelmed, if they are feeling disconnected, if you have an absentee issue, or if you know you are just working and overworked and you're not finding time to take care of yourself, let's create the safe space to actually give you tools of how you can take care of yourself, because at the end of the day, you're the most important asset, right? And so I think that's a really great example. So let's just shift gears a little bit and talk about your experience in our community. And so when you think about your experience in our community and our coaching program, what would you say would be the one or two biggest benefits that you've got in being a part of our community and working with our team to help grow your business?
Definitely the people. Like the accountability pods was everything for me. Being able to, and we're still connected. So being able to have people who are like-minded and be able to bounce ideas off of, get feedback from, connections. One of my, for example, like last year when I presented in DC, that was because someone in our community who knew what I did said, hey, they sent me in my inbox on Instagram, you need to be at this conference, apply to be a presenter. The proposals are ending, they're gonna close soon. I'm like, so it was because of being in the group that I was able to have additional support and to apply for different conferences, which that conference led me to actually being a presenter at the National Blue Ribbons School Awards ceremony in DC, which was, I was one of 4 presenters.
Oh, wow.
So at a national conference, but it's because they saw me at the other conference that one of our people sent me to. So that would be one. And the other piece is the feedback from the amazing coaches. That to me has been one of the most powerful things, being able to get feedback. Because sometimes you work in your own little silo, you're by yourself. You don't know if you got it right or wrong or not. But when you have people that can give you feedback and say, well, Tiffany, did you think about this? Or I need you to revise that and come back and let me see it. Or it just, those things are so valuable to me, because during that time of building, you want to make sure you're building right. And I think that those 2 pieces right there, more than everything else is great too though. But I think just being able to be in the community with like-minded people and you all as our coaches, to me, has been the best thing of all.
What would be one thing that you would say, whether it's a mindset shift or if it's a shift in your business, that has occurred as a result of being a part of our community?
Oh, it's both. It's both, y'all. It's both.
BOAF, both.
Both. First and foremost, the mindset piece. It was really an honor to be in the group to meet someone who has actually done it, who's an educator. And I'm talking about you. But just to be able to meet someone, she actually made the 6 figures. She actually made the 7 figures. She's done this work. She understands it. And helping us to understand we can do it too. So like, even though my father was a reference point, but that's a different industry. My father was in real estate, so that's different. But to be with someone who is also an educator, who understands what we as educators deal with, But to see you get to this point means that I can too. So you're my example. And so it was a mindset shift for me that I can make this money. It was a mindset shift for me that I can charge more money and get paid. Come on, get paid. And so I think that was really important to me. I had to shift my mindset, even down to this that thing she called strategic planning.
Girl,
I'm working right now to looking at my strategic planning piece, making sure that I'm putting things in place so that I could be successful this year. So yeah.
And what advice would you give to someone who is thinking that they could do it on their own and they don't need coaching or community? What advice would you give to them, or what would you say to them?
It's a setup for failure. You may be all right in the beginning, but you're gonna need someone who's gonna guide you on that journey. You can't do it alone. It's when you're in community that you learn things that you didn't know because once you learn it, you can't unlearn it. Once you've been exposed, you can't be unexposed. So being in community is very important. So I would highly recommend that if you are someone who's either already in business, you're starting, or even if you have your own business already, that I highly recommend that you join a community like the Wealthy Black Educator. Because when I tell you that it has helped me to really level up my business, the tools, the coaching, the support, like you can't go wrong, because when you do it by yourself, you don't know what if you connect in pieces, because some people try to do it in pieces. I'll get a little bit here on YouTube University, I get a little bit here from this person. But when you actually come into a community where you're learning and have a foundation where you can build along the way, that makes a difference. That makes a difference. And in order for you to level up, you have to invest at the level you expect. How to go? The level you desire. There you go. And so you have to invest in you. And so if you think you're gonna do it the cheaper route, you're gonna get those results. But if you decide to invest in you because you deserve that, and sometimes we as educators are made to feel that we can't afford certain things and things like that, but we can, because we are important. We deserve that. We deserve to level up. And so no, I would say don't go at it alone, because I wouldn't be where I am today without being in community. And I'm still growing and I'm still tapping into my community. So, yeah.
Let me tell you what I admire the most about you. First off, you are truly entrepreneurial at your core. And I think one of many examples of that is that there are some people whom I think they let life get in the way of their business. And I've seen time and time and time again of how you continue to be driven by your vision of freedom, which means sometimes you have to do the hard thing of pushing through and continuing to keep going even when it's hard. And that doesn't mean that we don't take breaks. That doesn't mean that we don't give ourselves grace. It just means that we just keep going, that you just make the decision every single day to choose to keep going. And sometimes keep going means I'm going to choose to rest today so that tomorrow I can do X, Y, and Z. That you have kept going and you never lost sight of the vision even when it was hard. And so I just want to say that I'm proud of you. I'm so proud of the way in which you've grown your business, the way in which you did the hard thing, and you've created your business in such an innovative way that there might be some people that would say, oh, you can't do that in a school. Or you get cooking demos in a school.
Watch me.
Right. And I just think that's such a beautiful example of just what it means to entrepreneur and so to be an entrepreneur. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing with our audience your story. And it's my hope that you've been able to glean some gems and nuggets from this conversation. So let us know in the comments what stuck with you, what resonated with you. Give us some feedback. If this episode really was meaningful for you, then please leave a review and then hit that follow or subscribe button so that way you know when the next episode drops. Until next time, family, we'll see you on the next episode of the 7-Figure Educator Podcast.